No matter what team you support, you have either been on the right side or the wrong side of a VAR call. Liverpool having a goal called offsides even though the player was clearly onside, Onana body slamming a Wolves player in the dying seconds of the game, or disregarding Bruno Guimaraes elbowing multiple Arsenal players in the back of the head. These are just a few examples from a large pool of errors that have come from poor decision making from the VAR room. There are a few reasons we've been seeing more issues in the Premier League than any other top European league with review assistant. So what is VAR? We must first address what exactly it is, the pros and cons, additionally to why we're seeing multiple issues. The video assistant referee, VAR, has undeniably changed the landscape of football in the Premier League, sparking lively discussions about its impact on the game. Some have seen it waste of time and change the way the games are played now, while some hailed it as a step forward, fairer decisions, but one thing for certain, VAR has major problems. Now, before we look at all the issues, though, we should shed some light on the positives. Increased accuracy. Studies suggest VAR has improved decision-making accuracy, particularly in crucial calls like goals, penalties, and red cards. Way to go, VAR. This is something that really we shouldn't have an issue with, but we still do. This can create a sense of justice and reduce post-match controversies, even though there's been multiple ones of those, while some could argue that the red cards shown this season is moving the game in the right direction, but keeping player safety is still at the top of their list. Reduced injustice. Glaring refereeing errors have significantly decreased thanks to VAR's ability to review decisions retrospectively, potentially salvaging matches from questionable calls. When games are heated and marginal differences can make or break a team, it is the relief of the ref to have multiple eyes to claim a proper handball, offsides, or a foul inside the box. Disciplinary consistency. VAR promotes more consistent applications of rules, particularly for borderline offside calls and penalty decisions, leading to fairer playing field. With how fast players are moving, calling a player offside has become more and more difficult. And that's about it. That's the positives with VAR. So let's look at the negatives, and yes, there are quite a few. First off, the flow disruption. Frequent stoppage of VAR checks can disrupt the game's rhythm and the momentum, impacting the viewing experience and potentially affecting players' fatigue levels. This season alone has seen more stoppage with VAR checks, which has seen more players standing around for minutes on end than back to full sprints, and thus increasing hamstring injuries. On top of that, adding stoppage time now sees game time stretch more and more, demanding more on players, and with how many matches teams are playing nowadays, this is also wearing and tearing on players as well. On top of that, subjectively, there remains with VAR. Now, despite VAR saying that everything is going to be clear and obvious, that has been the most unorthodox and wrong decision-making on most of these calls. There has not been any clear or obvious calls that have been consistent throughout the Premier League. We've seen one call being called, next week not being called, and therefore, again, this has been one of the other main issues. Along those lines, pressure on calls. More pressure on the center ref in previous years had them make a snap decision and stick to their calls, while now we see them holding and waiting for calls to be made by the VAR room. This then causes issues because players then continue to play, and this can lead to injuries as well. So therefore, again, the more and more we're seeing with VAR, the more and more injuries we are seeing. And the last thing we need to talk about is the delay. The waiting period for VAR interventions can create tension and uncertainty, impacting both players and fans, potentially affecting their emotional state and gameplay. This can take the sting out of an atmosphere or momentum for a team, which can have major impacts on results. So in conclusion, VAR's impact on football is complex. While it undoubtedly improves decision accuracy and reduces blatant errors, concerns regarding flow disruption, subjective interpretations, and potential physiological effects on players remain. Whether it's a friend or a foe ultimately depends on your perspective and priorities. The debate continues, though, and the technology evolves and adapts. It should, and that is a big should, get better as years go on. But at this point, there are still plenty of issues with VAR. So I want to know what you think. Has VAR been an improvement, or has it been totally bad this entire season? Comment down below, and if you do enjoy this video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe down below. I greatly appreciate that, and we'll see you in the next video.